discovered today. In the past year, the Black Hills area has been overrun with movie fans wanting to get a glimpse of where the Blair Witch Project was filmed.
Hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews Halloween special week, whatever we're calling it. We haven't really decided yet. This one we're looking at Blair Witch 2 and the kind of expansion upon the whole mythology. Core's going to kind of lead this one a bit.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange entry into a found footage kind of franchise because this isn't found footage. It was done with a proper Hollywood budget, completely left behind the kind of origins of like the first film. It came out a year later, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was. I know in the UK we got it in October 2000. We went to see it. I think it was Leeds Odeon, the one that's now Primark. But yeah, I liked it when I originally saw it. My opinion hasn't really changed. I mean, it's obviously nowhere near as good as the original film. And I think it's difficult for film to do sequels to. Like Paranormal Activity did good in doing the sequels that were pretty much the same formula, whereas this one changed formula.
Yeah, like I say, it completely changed it up. There are small elements of found footage because they tend to go back and review this footage of lost time that they had, the like characters in the film. But it's all shot as if this was, you know, a movie. It's not, oh, these people disappeared and then we found the footage like a few months later. No, it's nothing like that.
Based on a true story, but obviously not, kind of thing. It's a bit like Sinister like that, because that's to do with like found footage, but you as the viewer aren't seeing the found footage in raw kind of thing. It's like a film where the characters are finding raw footage, found footage. You know?
Right, so this came out right in the middle of the hype and the excitement to Blair Witch. It was only a year since we'd seen the original film. Everybody was still pretty kind of, man, this is, you know, really good. And there have been like talk on and off of like a third Blair Witch film, which, to be honest, after how this one did, kind of disappeared from mention.
Unless they did it again, if they kind of not rebooted it, but like soft rebooted it, do pretty much the same as the first film. Because the first film really appealed to our age group. I think the kind of younger viewers. And a lot of people that age now won't really appreciate Blair Witch because I mean it's like 15 years ago. I mean, some of the people that would probably.
I mean, the first like thought a lot of people are going to have like, why aren't they using the mobile phones? Why aren't they using like GPS? Like, find out where they are.
Well, yeah.
Well, of course, like back then, that wasn't such a big like of a pervasive thing.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah, because like it's very much not really something you would make nowadays, unless you kind of had an angle to kind of say, well, they don't have that because. Whatever.
I mean, actually, I could very easily see, yeah, you're out in the middle of the woods, you ain't going to get no reception.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But, plus as well, they've got the whole, like, I mean, the internet was a big angle in the first film, but in this one they could do kind of like it's an internet film or something like that, I don't know. But then again, they did that with Grave Encounters, didn't they? Well, especially the second film, so we've seen that done before.
Certainly that seems to be part of the angle they're coming into with the second Blair Witch film, The Book of Shadows. They're going into the hype surrounding the Blair Witch. There's faux documentary footage at the start and fake news reports, which are pretty much people like going on about how like this little town just got descended upon because people like really believe the Blair Witch happened, and just the whole kind of cult sensation that grew up around it, of like people obsessed with this like story.
It mirrors what really happened. Obviously, Burkittsville was a fictitious place, but in where it was actually filmed, it was kind of swamped with tourists. So, but it wasn't just the sequel that came out that year, from what I understand. There were also games as well, PC
yeah,
games.
there's. Well, we'll get into them when we've talked about the film, because I think we should start with that. But yeah, this again, we were still big into the hype, if you like. Again, that's not something you've really seen with stuff nowadays, like found footage. You don't really get like Paranormal Activity
T-shirts,
and
key rings, and
nothing really like that. I mean, I think the closest is the ever-present spoof parody of like Ghostly Activity or something stupid like that, with the same like shit cast of like one of the Wayans brothers at the very least, and all that kind of shit.
Scary movie type, but usually straight to video, that kind of thing.
I mean, the scary part is everybody kind of like takes the piss out of scary movies. It's like really shit. Scary movies actually the very top of that particularly slippy slope.
That's the standard a lot of other films have aspired to be.
And missed badly.
But Blair Witch 2, like we say, is just a normal film. Some of the actors that were in it, there's only one that was it Jeffrey Donovan? Is that the name of the actor?
That's the name of the actor. It's very weird going back to watch this film now if you're a fan of Burn Notice, because he is Michael Weston, the central character of the entire show. In fact, somewhere in my head I've just rewritten this as this is an early mission for the CIA, and for some reason he's setting the people up in this film.
Because the names of the characters in the in this film, Blair Witch 2, similar to what they did in the first film, the first names are the same names as the actors, which probably would have made it easier on the set, I guess. So they did that in the second one.
Yeah, it was pretty early in his career. He'd done some stuff in the 96, 97, but it was mostly TV work.
He was in an episode of Millennium.
I was going to say he was in that. He's been in quite a few things.
But I didn't recognise anybody else from memory anyway, apart from obviously Jay Leno and...
well, yeah.
As themselves.
What's his name? The critic...
the one that died recently.
Roger Ebert.
Yeah, he died recently.
Yeah, he's... Like I said, we're not entirely sure if those were actually...
filmed for the film, or...
Yeah, or if they were just reviews of, people talking about the original Blair Witch film. I'm not 100% sure, and we're not really that bothered to look it up.
Yeah, probably was. So that's pretty much the actual concept of the film.
Yeah, it's basically a bunch of people all interested in the Blair Witch in their own way. They go to this guy played by Jeffrey Donovan who does a tour out into the woods, visiting all the points from the Blair Witch trail, if you like. They go to the ruins of what's supposed to be Rustin Parr's house where they found the footage. They were going to go to Coffin Rock, but they never really get that far. Basically, they set up camp. They start getting high and getting a bit drunk, and then they wake up in the morning with no idea what the hell happened that night. And part of the story is trying to figure out what happened, what they did that night, what went down. And it kind of spirals out of control from there with weird supernatural occurrences. They kind of see a ghostly little girl who looks kind of like she's drowned. So that's supposed to be
Treacle.
Yeah, Eileen Treacle, the girl who got drowned in Tappy East Creek. See, in some ways the mythology of this is so comprehensive. I can actually remember bits of it, the names and so forth.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. They go through the footage, they play it backwards, and it shows a lot of this sort of a montage of what they did in their missing time. Were basically demon possessed and doing kind of rituals and stuff. And don't want to really give major spoilers away, just because I think you can just probably watch the film. But it just kind of ends on a bit of a downer, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah. Well, the witch wins.
Yeah.
Like I said, we can both talk about our views on it in a minute. There's also included on the DVD. You've got two full-length documentaries, kind of similar to the Curse of the Blair Witch you got in the first film.
Sci-Fi Channel produced.
One's the Burkittsville 7, which is about the Rustin Parr murders, and the theory that it wasn't actually Rustin Parr wasn't entirely responsible for it, but Kyle Brody, the kid that survived, was guiding him in some way. He was the mastermind behind it, because he's very fucked up is the kid, and was doing early serial killer stuff, cutting the legs off a frog and kind of messed up stuff like that. And he basically does end up in a psychiatric home later in life. He's just completely gone. The
theory that he knew too much about the actual kidnappings to have...
Yeah, including one that happened before he was even taken, so there's no way he would have been party to that.
Kind of thing you get in real life. It's like the McCann thing. It's there is a general consensus, they their child was kidnapped, but then there's another kind of very different line on it that the parents like accidentally killed her or whatever and covered it up. So it's similar to what you get in real life.
It's kind of an interesting documentary, but I think it's a little bit overlong because it does start repeating itself a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of drills in the whole thing about like we say, the kid knew too much about the kidnapping of the other girl because it was before he,
That's. I think you could have made it like a 20-minute documentary instead of a 40-minute and just not had so many redundant bits. There's another one, The Shadow of the Blair Witch, which is around the murders that because this film's supposed to be based on
a true story.
Yeah, which it isn't, but
mythology-wise.
Yeah. It's based on, it's a documentary about the murders that this film was supposedly based on, which never actually happened.
So it's like Titanic, you've got the James Cameron film based on real events with actors, and then you might have a documentary about the real life, the true story. So if you kind of watch this with DVD, with all the documentaries, to suspend disbelief, you can kind of have a bit of an experience. It's quite good how it's done. I mean, it could have been better, but I don't really have any major gripes about it. It wasn't anywhere near as good as the first film, but they did a good. I think they made, especially to say they knocked it out in a year after the success of the first one. I think they did a good enough job. And it was written by the two guys that did the first film as well, that directed the first film.
Yeah, it was also still Hexen Films and Artisan.
Yeah. There was also the thing with what's called S-River, which you just reverse backwards. And it was this was something that was very prevalent, especially in the 90s, with a lot of like fundamentalist Christians saying that there was backwards masking, in particular in music. So the whole play it backwards and you get a message was very big, especially in the 90s. So they did that. There was a thing after you watch the film, there's a sequence where a lot of letters kind of flash up in the bottom, and it kind of tells you a lot of stuff about it. In the film, here's some uncut scenes, here's some little subliminal messages.
Yeah, it kind of shows you what to look for, and then if you play the segment backwards and actually like translate what the words are, they point you to certain scenes in the film where if you're paying close attention, it's like something changes, or you see something a little bit creepy in the background, or look there's what looks like a Blair Witch stick figure like silhouette in the water.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Sometimes see it on the window as well, but the words that are spelled out, I mean, I've never actually like spotted all these. I spotted a few.
Yeah, I wouldn't have noticed any of this stuff if you hadn't pointed it out to me.
Yeah, I did see. Where is it on it?
They're not even that subliminal, really. I don't really think they add anything. It's more if you want it to be like a hardcore nerd and go back and look them all up, but they don't really tell you anything that much. And eventually, if you piece it all together, it sort of spells out.
Well, what
seek me no more or something.
Yeah, it says seek me no further or, and then after the words are seen, Tristan does in fact speak this sentence in reverse: the children will again walk free. So combined you get seek me no further or the children will again walk free. I mean, what the hell?
And that's sort of what happens in the film, because they keep seeing the drowned little girl, and there's one bit where the goth chick has to swerve a car to avoid hitting 7 kids that are just standing in the middle of the road who look to be they're supposed to look as if they were like somewhere in the 1920s, so they're supposedly Rustin Parr's victims. Also, there's one bit that I did notice that was kind of interesting, when she's ranting, that the pregnant girl's, well, the formerly pregnant girl, because she's lost the baby at that point, is ranting to her boyfriend. She's going on about the stuff the kids did to Ellie Kedwood.
Yeah.
And she's going on about how like they set dogs on her and so forth, and after the blood they put the hand in the blood and then put it on her and you could see the like bloody handprints, which is kind of interesting because the all the weird writing and stuff in Rustin Parr's house is also all those little bloody handprints.
Yeah, I think that was where they were going.
Well, yeah, no, obviously I'm just saying, it's interesting. I didn't notice that. At least not consciously the first time I saw this. It was something I more noticed this time around.
Yeah, because when you watch that first film, right at the end, they had these little handprints, like children's handprints on the wall. I think originally it was just because it looked creepy, but then they kind of expanded on it in the sequel. But yeah, I mean, it's an entertaining enough film. Depends if you like that kind of thing or what you expected after watching the first, because it was a bit of a departure after the first film. So I can see why a lot of people were disappointed, but I mean, I thought it was perfectly acceptable. Yeah,
I come down on the other side because I don't hate the film, but I'm not a huge fan of it. It was a massive departure from what people wanted and were expecting. And whereas the first film had like a very strong grounding in reality. This one, it didn't really have characters so much as like archetypes. I mean, you've got the kind of wheeler-dealer guy who's like selling stuff on eBay, and he's got all this tucky gear around where he lives, and he like talked somebody out this place for like $1 and stuff. He's very like kind of, I'm like very clever and I'm very, manipulative. Yeah, that'd be a good way to sum it up. Yeah, he's a bit of a geezer. And then you've got the slightly fragile pregnant chick who doesn't really want the baby, and you've got her completely overacting boyfriend who's apparently researching something.
The academic.
Yeah, and then you've got the goth whose devised entire character seems to be based around, I'm a goth. Do you not notice I'm a goth? I wear black all the time and makeup. I'm a goth. And then you've got the Wiccan who... It's like, seriously, will you shut up?
Yeah, I found it to be really annoying.
Most of it's like, it's almost as bad as the Burning Times. It's like, what the hell are you talking about, woman?
We embrace nature, not evil, and all that. It's like really pretentious. I think just because I know a lot of people, I've met a lot of people like that. You just want to slap them.
No offence to you if you're into Wiccan beliefs and stuff, but a lot of it is... It's stuff that came out around the 60s and stuff. It's not necessarily based on the actual shit that went down,
I think a lot of it is just teenage girls just being pretentious, and that's what this character is pretty much, more than anything else.
Yeah, like I said, that took me right out of the film, because they are... Whereas the first film, Heather Donahue, Josh Leonard, and Michael something... I just remember them calling him Little Mikey. Are like characters, they have like fairly believable stuff they get up to.
Well, they're not stereotypes.
Exactly, they're not just like, he's the stoner, she's the smart chick, and he's the jock, or something like that. They're a lot more than just vague, broad stereotypes. In this, they're much more stereotypical, they're less characters, more a collection of traits.
I think maybe they were just kind of reining it in for the people that didn't like the first ones, because they're kind of pandering to them, like, I didn't like it, it's well gays at first, you don't see anything, it's just them screaming and shouting, we want to see something.
Yeah, but I also think it can be... one of the classic horror films that most people agree is a classic, and, they don't get many people arguing it, is Halloween. And one of the things that makes it a classic is they didn't have a huge budget to spend on things. There's a lot of things that have to just be atmosphere and build up and suggestion, and where they had to basically confront the limitations they had at the time and be clever and think around that. And certainly the first film had that as well. Whereas this film just had, we need a jump scare where an owl flies through the window because that'll make you jump in the cinema.
Which you did.
Which I did, yes.
I very well remember.
I'm always pretty vulnerable to that. If something smashes loudly on the screen, I go, because I'm not expecting it. So it's not exactly it scares me; it just makes me jump.
Yeah, there's nothing really clever about it. I could now just like that to you, and you shoot yourself. You didn't shoot yourself, though. I'm quite impressed. But that would be again that's how easy that is to do. But to really scare somebody, it's like lead somebody, say, look out that window there, and then however imaginative I did it, you be scared. That would be clever. It's like the comedy, it's the equivalent of the comedy pie in the face kind of thing. It's
like they got a little bit lazy with the second one. I mean, even watching it again, I didn't remember it too clearly because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remembered the major beats of it. And I don't think I jumped that much when the owl flew through the window this time round, to be honest.
No.
There was no point where I was really creeped out or scared. I mean, usually when a creepy little girl shows up looking all drowned and then walks backwards kind of funnily, didn't exactly scare me, so, It's probably an easier film to rewatch, though, than the original. Because rewatching the original once you know what's going to happen, I mean, going back to it like we did a couple of days ago, it was very much... It didn't really have anything left to offer me because I'd seen it all. Whereas this film is actually more of a traditional film, so you will enjoy it on that level.
Yeah, I think because the first one, to use a Topher equivalent, it kind of shot its load once you watched it, the first time round. Whereas...
I say the second film, it's more of a traditional horror film, and that was kind of its sin. It was... If this hadn't been tied into the Blair Witch, it would have come along
as any other.
Maybe you wouldn't have hit cinemas, it would have gone straight to video, and maybe you'd like it, maybe you wouldn't, but you wouldn't really think about it overly much.
Yeah, it was nice to kind of develop the story a little bit, which, you know.
Though I think I would have liked it if they had developed the story a little bit more and gone into something new. Because like I said, they sort of did with the suggestion that in some ways the kids were more fucked up than Ellie Kedwood. But it didn't really go anywhere with that.
Yeah, it was just suggested as well. I mean, ultimately you don't know. But again, it kind of, in some ways, it's good because it makes you think about it. Whereas if they just tell you, it's like, oh, they've told me, now I know at the end. But at least in this, it kind of gets you thinking, well, was it that way? Or, you know, kind of...
Yeah, going into minor spoilers, there's a lot of scenes in this film that you see through from their perspective. And then you see it a second time at the very end on tape and things happen differently. I would have been much more impressed with that if the scenes played out exactly the same, like the actors doing the same things and saying the same things. However, the person they're interacting with was doing something completely different. I'm trying to think how best to...
Well, there's a bit where he turns to the camera and he's like, fucking witch, like that.
Yeah, that's like a bit groan-worthy with that line. But like I say, if they'd gone through that scene using the same stuff as they were doing the first time round, but used the change in perspective to put a completely different, darker, more unpleasant spin on it, it would have sold me more on the idea that something is manipulating, something is framing them, something is making them look bad, when they didn't actually do this, something else did. But it ultimately ends up very much... They just filmed the scene again differently, so I was a bit disappointed in that.
Yeah. Well, what else have we got?
Yeah, well, we've got the soundtrack. It's actually my copy.
It's quite a good album as well.
Yeah, this is... one of the things I remember actually more than the film is the soundtrack. There's a couple of things on here that I really couldn't stand, which I kind of skip whenever I listen to this. Not so much, it was more Tommy Don't Die, which I couldn't stand. It's a really shit song.
Well, there was like some bands that weren't all that well known at the time, like Nickelback, Queens of the Stone Age. Not Queens of, no, they were not actually. Yeah, I'm going to say what I'm thinking. Death in Vegas. I knew about them later on. POD, is that there? I didn't know that. Godhead as well, it's quite a good song.
Didn't they also do a song for the Scorpion King?
No, that was Gobsmack.
Gobsmack.
Yeah, I was getting too confused actually. That's how I knew what you meant.
But yeah, this is... in fact, this is the second time I bought this, because my first copy got kind of scratched and screwed up, so I actually rebought this a couple of years ago.
That's funny, because the film, it's the second one I bought of the film, because Topher nicked the original, and then a week later the footage was found.
Well, actually, I think it probably didn't help that it was just kind of like sat around on a shelf, because you just listen to something and then you just shove it on the shelf. At Topher's, so that's probably how it got all scratched up.
Yeah, he used to scratch.
So technically we could blame Topher for this.
Exactly.
Although I wasn't any better at like taking care of CDs, so I'm not going to say anything. Yeah, this is pretty good. You can pick this up dirt cheap. I didn't pay much for this at all. And like I say, this is largely my kind of music actually, so I'm pretty limited in my taste in music as well.
I don't know, you like heavy metal, but at the opposite end you like rock as well. So, you know, very broad, you know. But there were also some games as well that came out around at the time.
Yeah, these were part of the big rush for things. I mean, they were talking about like there was going to be a third film, and they brought out a series of 3 games.
Blair Witch Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Fall 2000.
Volume 1, Rustin Parr, Volume 2, Legend of Coffin Rock, and Volume 3, Ellie Kedwood's Tale.
Was this PC only?
Yeah, this was PC only. And they came out mostly around the same time as the film. I'm not sure when this one came out, but...
This is release date?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, that's basically just saying that they're all available now, because that's the last one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like January 2001 the last one came out.
So very closely after Book of Shadows was released in cinemas.
Yeah, these were coming out at the exact same time. October 2000, November 2000 is when these two were coming out. I've looked these up. You can get them from eBay or Amazon.
So,
Usually you might be looking at about £10 for the full box set like I've got there with all of them. Or you can usually get the individual games for like £2-3 each. Now, surprisingly, a lot of games based on movies tend to be utter shit. There are exceptions, but a lot of them tend to be, LGN kind of style crap. The most surprising thing about these games was the first one, Rust in Par, was actually not a bad game, which is probably the most shocking thing about this.
what kind of game is it?
Well, you might think some kind of like point-and-click adventure like Broken Sword, but no. These were kind of fixed camera perspective, shooter, adventure, action, survival horror, kind of like Resident Evil. The first one, like I say, set in 1914, it's all about Rust in Par. The second one is set even further back, and the last one is obviously set at the very start of the story with the Ellie Kedward stuff. They were done... Yeah.
All shoot 'em. So you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, they're all the same basic design. Yeah, I know. It's one of the surprising things. They're all done by Terminal Reality, Collection of Developers, as they were called.
I wonder if were they all different developers? Because
yeah, I was going to say it was like I forget, it was like Collection of Developers, and they had a different development team on each game, but it was the same.
That's how they managed to get 3
group.
games out in a short space.
Yeah, unfortunately, the second 2 games really suffered for the quality of it. Right, the first one links in quite closely to this game, Nocturne, which was brought out by Terminal Reality as well, and it's basically this game engine that they're using. This is a bit of a cult game. It didn't do too well at the time, but it's kind of become popular since. Again, you can pick this up for a couple of quid. The easiest way of summing up the game quickly is to say it's a little bit like Hellboy. It's about a government agency that employs unusual agents to fight supernatural menaces, so it's basically the BPRD. Just in this it's called Spook House. Whether they ripped off Hellboy for the concept of the game, I don't know. And the first one, The Legend of Rust in Par, is essentially a continuation of Nocturne. It's the closest thing to a Nocturne 2 we ever got. Spook House is investigating the Rust in Par murders. The main character out of this, the Stranger, who's kind of a Hellboy allergy, doesn't actually the featured character of this. Instead, it's a scientist called Elsabeth Holliday, and she goes down to Burkittsville shortly after the execution of Rust in Par. She was actually hoping to talk to him, but she kind of missed it by a few days. And she goes around town investigating what happened. She goes out into the woods. They've even got quite a good "You're lost in the woods because the Blair Witch is kind of screwing with your perspective" section, which manages to not be boring, which was surprising. It goes into the background and mythology of the Blair Witch quite a bit as well, and actually pegs it as Ellie Kedward not really being the ground zero for all this, but instead it being tied to Native American myth. And the reason the local Indians kind of avoided this whole area of the Black Hills because it was supposed to have something evil lurking there. And basically, you've got to solve quite a few puzzles. There's quite a few shoot 'em up bits where you get attacked by animated giant stickmen and stuff. But good game. Controls are a little bit shaky. Plot and atmosphere, excellent. Then, like I say, a month or 2 after that came The Legend of Coffin Rock, where you are this mysterious, scarred Civil War soldier with no memory who's nursed back to health by Robin Weaver's mother, or grandmother, I forget which it is. You've got no memory of who you are or where you come from. And then little Robin Weaver, the girl who leads to the whole Coffin Roll Kicks and goes missing. So you go out into the woods to see if you can find her. And the final one, you are a priest turned witch hunter who's gone to Burkittsville to investigate the case of Ellie Kedwood and the deaths and murders that have been happening around town. Now, unfortunately, where the first one was saved by really good plots, enticing atmosphere, and a really interesting premise of basically what would happen if the BPRD went after the Blair Witch. The other two games didn't have that. They just had shaky camera angles, poor combat. The stories weren't anywhere near as strong. So unfortunately the quick development time on these really suffered, basically. Which was a shame. You can get pretty much all these to run on a modern PC easily enough. I played these last a couple of years ago, and I didn't have to emulate anything or run it through DOS or anything stupid like that. You were released on 95, 98 Windows, so those should run under a modern system without too much trouble. But yeah, they were a surprising little addition to the Blair Witch. I couldn't really see a Paranormal Activity video game coming out.
Yeah.
Then again, watching the Blair Witch, you couldn't really see that spawning a video game either, so...
Yeah, I mean, that's still like a good atmosphere, like being in the woods and stuff. But, yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway, that's it for our Blair Witch retrospective. We've done 1 and 2, and some of the merchandising. Next review, which should be up tomorrow, we will be doing Paranormal Activity.
Yes, that is correct. Tomorrow, Thursday, we will be posting another video, a review of the Paranormal Activity franchise, and also talking about a few other found footage films that have come out in the last 5, 6 or 7 years. So check back brandxreviews.com, and we will see you for the next 2 reviews for Halloween 2014. Thank you very much.
Right, now you sure you're not going to shit out this review?
Yes. I know, we've been accused in the past of putting shitty reviews on, literally in my case. Yes.
Just keep your arse under control, you foul-ass bastard.
Right, that's...
Yeah, you just don't expect a foul-ass shit! I'm going to let that just clear for a second, so I'm getting a whiff.
I did it about like 30 seconds ago.
I know, I just got a whiff of it. I was like, no! Starting again!
I'm a flatulent man.
Focus! Right, you good?
Just don't say words like shit.
I'm not. That's like putting a gun to your head and squeezing the trigger. Oh, you giggling fool! Yeah, there's like little figures of like some of the characters, and they're like a little stick man or something. Yeah, we'll just somehow chop this up into something that isn't you laughing like a fool.
There'll be a lot of stuff in editing, right?
Okay, right, we'll start again. What do you mean we'll start?
No!
Next review, which should be up tomorrow, we will be doing Paranormal Activity and other giggling bastards.
Just say we're going to be doing Paranormal Edit.
Yeah, we're going to be doing Paranormal Activity and Or the giggling bastards!
Just try to label it through.
Yeah, we're going to be doing Paranormal Activity.
No, I'm still laughing. I don't feel a drum building up, so hurry up.
No! Found footage films that we found interesting. Moving into the fifth review, which is going to be something we both remember and have fond memories of. So we'll see you tomorrow. Shut up! Stop laughing! The credits are just going to be me strangling you.
Oh, God.